Good morning. Gold prices are hitting record highs, and this is not a big surprise. Inflation in the United States is the worst in decades, since the 1970s. And the 1970s was also a time when gold prices boomed. They hit all-time records because the Federal Reserve was trying to raise interest rates to keep inflation down, while the federal government was spending money like crazy, which kept inflation rates high. Now we're about to go through all that again, except this time we're going to try it without a manufacturing base. China's got that now. And we're starting off with far higher levels of debt. Ask gold investors why they want to buy precious metals, and they'll tell you that they don't trust the US dollar to hold their value. And they likely don't trust the US banking systems, and probably don't have much faith in US political institutions either. If that worldview is shared by a minority, a sizable minority, but still a minority of Americans, it is fast becoming a majority point of view outside the United States. It is impossible to overstate how quickly things are unraveling, how quickly things are moving, how major countries have lost faith in our Western banking systems, pulling dollars out of our banks and putting them into theirs and jerking gold reserves and deposits around. And this is all happening very fast. Let's begin here. This is from the Atlantic Council, which shows the change in central bank gold reserves. These are gold holdings by central banks across the 20 largest economies. The dotted vertical line is the war in Ukraine and the aftermath, which involved seizing Russia's US dollar and Euro reserves that were held in Western banks. India was already boosting its gold holdings and have simply continued doing so at a faster clip. Their gold reserves are up about 18% since 2021. China did not increase their central bank gold reserves at all. Then in mid-2022, started buying aggressively, and they're up 15%. The Reserve Bank of India was not merely buying gold in the open market. They were moving it. They took 100 tons that were held in vaults in the UK and brought those back to Mumbai. After the Ukraine war began, India has bought more gold than anybody. China's buying has gotten all the headlines in the gold markets, but in just 4 months, India bought more gold than all their buys in the previous year. What is their motivation? India has been working to diversify their central bank reserves, but they're doing so much more urgently now, which implies a strategic objective. Reserve Bank of India's governor said that it was all the uncertainty following the Ukraine war that is driving things there. And one of India's leading economists said the US dollar is historically stable, but the reliability of the US dollar has diminished. India and other countries looked at the West's decisions on Russian banking reserves and reconsidered everything that they believed before about the safety of our systems. These assets could be blocked or seized by other governments and banks. India is not a producer of gold. So if India's central bank wants to buy gold, they got to get it from someone else. China is a major producer, the world's #1, and Russia is the world's second largest producer. And these analyses here are trying to understand, if we have all these sanctions against Russia, 16,000, why is their economy getting stronger? And one of the big reasons is that Russia is able to get their gold into global markets. There are sanctions against Russian gold producers and the networks that move it around. The UK has a big press release about it, and you can click on that blue button there and read in Ukrainian what a great job the UK Foreign Secretary is doing. 29 new UK sanctions against operators in Russian gold and oil. These include Russia's largest refiner of gold and its buyers, sellers. Gold is one of Russia's most important sources of revenue, and the UK identified a network in the UAE, which has moved more than $300 million worth of Russian gold. Sanctions continue to deal a heavy blow to the Kremlin's war economy, says the UK Foreign Secretary, which would come as news to almost anyone else, including the analysts here who are wondering why the Russian economy seems to be doing just fine. Sanctions just create new markets. That's all they do. Import bans, export curbs, all they do is create new incentives for new entities to figure out how to profit off of them and to go around them. And they create a source of entertainment for us, so we can watch how clever people figure out clever ways to get around them. Reuters found some of these clever people in the UAE. In 2021, the UAE bought 1.3 tons of gold from Russia. In the year after the war started, they bought over 75 tons, spread over 1,000 shipments. That's about 60 times as much. As an aside, what currency do you suppose they used to buy that Russian gold? It doesn't say, we don't know, but the UAE runs large trade surpluses in Euro and in USD. So this is another example of how our dollars and Euro are probably being used outside of our own banking systems. After the UAE comes China and Turkey. Looking here at the big countries we're talking about so far: Russia, China, India, the UAE, and Turkey. All of these are BRICS countries. And if you're starting to wonder if these guys might all be working together, that's probably not a bad question. So with China, Turkey, and the UAE, those three countries make up 99.8% of all the outbound Russian gold. Global banks, logistics companies, and refiners stopped dealing in Russian gold after the sanctions were put on. By the end of August 2022, the UK, the EU, Switzerland, the United States, Canada, and Japan had all banned imports of Russian gold. But Russian gold producers soon enough found new markets. Switzerland shows up here on the list of countries that is not buying Russian gold. Yet the next month comes news from Bloomberg that says Switzerland was increasing their buying immediately before they announced they wouldn't be. Analysts suspect that Swiss investors are buying Russian gold and melting it down and reselling it. Switzerland historically is being known as indifferent, let's say, to where the precious metals come from. Billions of dollars a year smuggled out of Africa to Switzerland. This has been a feature of the Swiss banking system for centuries. No questions asked. If you want to sell gold, they won't ask questions. If you want to buy it, don't ask them any questions either. And global demand for gold is rising from everywhere. American gold buyers who are old enough to remember the 1970s and see striking similarities to conditions today, they're big buyers. So they can diversify custody of their assets away from US banks and financial institutions. Now, central banks across the developing world are also big buyers, and for those same reasons. This is Sanya, Hainan province. Be good.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.